In a case that sent shockwaves through the medical community and beyond, Dr. Stephen Matthews, a once respected Denver cardiologist, has been convicted of drugging and sexually assaulting multiple women he met through dating apps. The verdict, delivered after weeks of trial, marks the end of a horrifying saga that spanned several years and left nearly a dozen women traumatized. This case not only exposed the dark actions of a serial predator, but also raised important questions about online safety and the responsibilities of dating platforms. Dr. Matthews, 36, was a successful cardiologist practicing in Denver, Colorado. On the surface, he appeared to be a respected medical professional, trusted by his patients and colleagues alike. However, beneath this facade lurked a predator who used his charm, status, and medical knowledge to perpetrate a series of heinous crimes that would eventually lead to his downfall. The first cracks in Matthews' carefully constructed image appeared in early 2023 when a woman came forward with a disturbing story. She reported that after meeting Matthews through a dating app, she had gone on a date with him, could not remember much of what happened. This initial report opened the floodgates, and soon more women came forward with similar stories, each one adding to the growing picture of Matthews' predatory behavior. As investigators delved deeper into the case, a clear and disturbing pattern emerged. Matthews would connect with women through popular dating apps like Hinge and Tinder, presenting himself as a successful and charming medical professional. He would suggest meeting for seemingly innocent activities such as brunch or dog walking. However, these meetings were strategically planned to take place near his home, allowing him to easily invite the women back for a drink. It was at this point that Matthews' sinister plan would unfold. According to the victims, he would drug their drinks, causing them to black out or experience significant memory loss. Many of the women reported waking up in their own homes with no recollection of how they got there. Some had vague, troubling memories of sexual encounters they had not consented to. The horror of their experiences was compounded by confusion and self-doubt, as many struggled to piece together what had happened to them. One particularly disturbing aspect of the case was that Matthews had documented his crimes. In at least one instance, when a victim refused to see him again, he sent her photos of herself naked in a hot tub, images she had no memory of, and certainly had not consented to being taken. This act not only demonstrated Matthews' callousness, but also provided crucial evidence for the prosecution. As more victims came forward, the scale of Matthews' crimes became apparent. Eventually, he faced more than 36 counts, accused of drugging 11 women and sexually assaulting 9 of them. Some of the assaults dated back to 2019, indicating that Matthews had been operating as a predator for years before he was finally caught. The length of time over which these crimes occurred raised troubling questions about how he had managed to evade detection for so long. The trial itself was a grueling process for the victims. The prosecution called nearly 60 witnesses and presented around 500 pieces of evidence, including videos and photos Matthews had taken of his victim. The sheer volume of evidence and the consistent pattern of behavior it revealed painted a damning picture of the defendant. Each piece of evidence, each testimony, added to the overwhelming case against Matthews. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict. In a dramatic courtroom scene, Matthews stood with his counsel as the judge read out the decisions on each count. As the litany of guilty verdicts was read, Matthews visibly broke down, hunching over and beginning to cry. The jury found Matthews guilty on 35 of the 38 counts of sexual assault and assault. For 3 sexual assault charges related to one particular victim, he was found guilty of a lesser charge of third-degree assault. The reading of the verdict took over 10 minutes, underlining the extensive nature of Matthews's crime. The reaction to the verdict was one of relief and vindication for the victims and their supporters. Beth McCann, the Denver district attorney, released a statement saying, "Stephen Matthews took advantage of nearly a dozen women in the most egregious way imaginable, and for that, he will now pay a significant price." I hope today's verdict provides a measure of comfort to all the victims whose courage throughout this case should be an inspiration to us all. The former district attorney of Denver went even further, calling Matthews one of the most prolific serial rapists in the history of the state of Colorado. This statement underscores the severity and scale of Matthews' crimes and the impact they have had on the community. It also highlights the significance of the case in the annals of Colorado's criminal history. Throughout the trial, Matthews' defense team attempted to cast doubt on the prosecution's case. They pointed out that there was no physical evidence of drugging found in Matthews' home, apart from Plan B contraceptives. They also highlighted that most of the women had not undergone sexual assault exam, questioning how the exact nature of what happened could be determined. This defense strategy sought to exploit the gaps in memory that Matthews had deliberately created in his victims. However, the consistency of the victims' stories, photographic and video evidence, and the sheer number of accusers proved overwhelming. The jury's decision to convict on almost all counts, while finding Matthews guilty of lesser charges in a few instances, suggests they carefully considered the evidence for each charge. This thorough examination of the evidence lends further credibility to the verdict. The trial was undoubtedly a difficult experience for Matthews and the victims. Many of them testified, having to relive their traumatic experiences and face cross-examination from the defense. However, according to Stephen Berg, the attorney representing the victims in a civil action, some found the process therapeutic. Berg stated, "It's a show of strength to be able to tell your story and to potentially give others freedom to tell their story as well." This sentiment highlights the complex emotions involved in such cases, where the pursuit of justice can be both traumatic and empowering for survivors. The courage of these women in coming forward and seeing the case through to its conclusion has been widely praised. Their actions not only brought Matthews to justice, but may have prevented him from victimizing more women in the future. The case serves as a powerful example of the importance of speaking out against sexual assault, even when faced with a perpetrator in a position of power and respect. Matthews, who has been held on a $5 million bond since his arrest in March 2023, now awaits sentencing. The sentencing hearing is scheduled for October, where Matthews could face up to 25 years in prison. At this hearing, the victims will have the opportunity to give impact statements, and Matthews will have a chance to speak as well. This sentencing phase will provide a final opportunity for the victims to address their attacker and for the court to determine an appropriate punishment for Matthews' crimes. In addition to his criminal conviction, Matthews has agreed with the Colorado Medical Board to suspend his medical license. Given the nature and extent of his crimes, it seems highly unlikely that he will ever practice medicine again. This aspect of the case highlights the far-reaching consequences of Matthews' action, not only in terms of criminal punishment, but also in the complete destruction of his professional life and reputation. While the criminal case against Matthews has concluded, the legal ramifications of his actions continue. Stephen Berg, the attorney representing Matthews' victims, has indicated that they are preparing a civil lawsuit. Interestingly, this lawsuit is not just targeting Matthews himself, but also the dating apps through which he met his victim. This additional legal action opens up a new front in the pursuit of justice and accountability in this case. Berg argues that companies like Match Group, which owns both Hinge and Tinder, bear some responsibility for Matthews' ability to continue his predatory behavior. According to Berg, these companies were informed that Matthews was a rapist and promised to remove him from their platform. Failed to do so. He contends that by allowing Matthews to remain on their apps and even promoting his profile, these companies facilitated his crimes. This potential lawsuit raises important questions about the responsibility of online platforms in ensuring user safety. Challenges the often cited Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which generally protects online platforms from liability for user-generated content. The outcome of this civil case could have far-reaching implications for how dating apps and other online platforms handle reports of abuse and protect their users. In conclusion, the conviction of Dr. Stephen Matthews marks the end of a dark chapter in Colorado's history. But it also opens new conversations and legal battles. His crimes have left deep scars on his victims and shaken the community's trust. However, the successful prosecution of the case, courage of the survivors, and the legislative changes it has inspired offer hope for the future. As Matthews awaits sentencing, attention now turns to the potential civil case against the dating apps and the broader implications for online safety. While no legal action can undo the trauma inflicted on Matthews' victim, there is hope that their bravery in coming forward will lead to changes that prevent similar crimes in the future. The Matthews case serves as a powerful reminder of the ongoing need for vigilance, support for survivors, and continued efforts to combat sexual violence in all its forms. It is a call to action for individuals, companies, and legislators alike to work towards a safer society for all. As we move forward, the lessons learned from this case must not be forgotten, but rather used to drive meaningful change in how we approach issues of online safety, professional ethics, and sexual assault prevention.